Welcome back to At Home with Roby. I'm Patrick McIsaac with Trent Haston, and we are your hosts. Trent, I said it for you that time. We're now lucky enough to be with Moisture Lock. We have Sam and Pat here. We're going to talk about foundations, and there's a lot of things that you need to know about your foundation. It's one of those things that you don't look at all the time, but there are some symptoms that you need to be aware of, and these guys are the experts in telling you just exactly what you need to know. Pat and Sam, welcome to the show. Let's jump right into this. Pat, we were talking about red clay in Charlotte. Now, what does that have anything to do with your foundation?
That's what causes the settlement in this part of the country. Expansive clays, when they get wet and dry, they dry out and shrink, and they cause the subgrade to settle. And if the subgrade settles, the foundation moves. I mean, it's gravity. If the soils go down, then the foundation's going to go down.
So why does clay move more than other types of soil?
They seem to. I mean, just like you were saying, I'm from Kentucky originally. You don't see near the problems you see in the Carolinas.
They got bourbon clay up there.
Well, I don't know about that, but yeah.
And a trail. It makes a trail.
That's probably right.
Well, Sam, we were catching up before we got on. I mean, Pat, before we got on the show, and you said you and I had met in the late '90s, early 2000s, right when I got into the business, and you said you knew my father and our business, my grandfather, back a long time ago when you were in the concrete pumping business.
Sure did, and great people to deal with. Andrew Roby, they did remodeling on our office, and the owner of the company, they built a house up on the lake, built a beautiful home for him up there. My boss was a tough guy to work for, and your dad and he got along real well.
There we go. We got the plug. Andrew Roby gives great customer service for the toughest of folks.
Hey, he's a tough guy. So
well, good. I think
work.
It was about the time that I was driving the dump truck, so I think that I might have been the lead laborer on that job.
Is that back when you had your earring and you were wearing like the you were wearing? All right, I'll stop. Let's get back on time. I'll stop.
So let's talk about it. Am I living in la la land thinking that now foundations are moving a lot more than they did 30, 40 years ago, or has that always been happening in the Carolinas and it's going to continue to happen?
It's always been happening. Prior to helical piers, and helical piers, by the way, have been around for probably 100, 150 years, the concept. But the modern helical pier has been around 35, 40 years. But foundations have been settling. The way they repaired them before, the contractor would go out and dig a hole under the existing foundation and pour more concrete. I've even seen where we've gone in, had to dig that concrete out and chip it out. They put hydraulic jacks between the concrete they poured in the footing, and basically all they were doing is adding more weight and making it worse. But that's the only thing they had until helical piers came around.
So can you, for the audience out there, what is a helical pier? I mean, I kind of know what a helical pier is because
in layman's terms, it's a shaft with a helical plate on it. If you saw an auger, this is similar to an auger, except an auger pulls dirt out. A helical pier pulls itself down into the ground. And it's pulling itself down into the ground trying to find load-bearing soil, because the soil where the footing's sitting at the present is not supporting your foundation. So you can put extensions on it. We've gone as deep as 40 and 50 feet. But as a rule of thumb around here, about 12, 14 feet, you should find some good soil.
So y'all heard me say earlier, when we typically build a new house or do an addition, the foundation is typically 2 to 3 feet deep that we dig down. And basically the way it's done is the county inspector comes out and you got to get to what you think is hard soil, typically 2 feet or more deep, and then they stick a probe and see how far the probe goes, I guess, with ease. And if it's tedious to push down, then you pass the test. You're able to pour the concrete and build brick on top of it, which is the whole foundation. So what Pat's saying is when a foundation starts to sink over years because of the weight of the home or the building, y'all go in, the average of job is 10 to 20 feet deep, and you find really hard soil, correct?
That's correct. Actually, we have a hydraulic mechanism that screws the pier down into the ground. Actually, it's like a wood screw screwing it into wood. and it's pulling itself down into the ground. It doesn't disturb the soil much at all. And we're reading gauges that are telling us what the capacity of that pier is. And now in North Carolina, you have to have a structural engineer look at your house. We cannot go out and give you a price or a proposal without a structural engineer, especially in North Carolina. And once that engineer gives us a report, he tells us what capacity he wants that pier to be. It might be 15,000 pounds. He might want 30,000 pounds of capacity. And we take it down to that. And then there's a bracket that we attach to the footing and hook the pier, the shaft, to the footing and mechanically, hydraulically lift the footing. Now, taking it back to the original position is just a plus if you get that. But as a rule of thumb, what we're wanting to do is stabilize that foundation for the lifetime of the structure, and that's what we do. Once we do that, we give a lifetime warranty for the structure.
Got it. Pat, that is such valuable information. Folks, as a reminder, you're listening to At Home with Roby. Check us out on Facebook, Andrew Roby, Roby Electric, and Roby Realty. We're here with Sam and Pat from Moisture Lock. And we're talking about your foundation. Trent, I think you had a question for Pat.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, growing up, just in my construction world, you said something that I think is cool for the audience to know. If you have a structural problem and your structure's sagging, even if it doesn't include the foundation, it's a wood structural problem or a foundation problem, the rule of thumb is you don't try to typically jack it back up level to what it was, because you're going to mess all this other stuff like the wall finishes and the windows that have fallen over the years as well. So what you said is awesome. I want the listener to hear it, is you stabilize it.
Basically, you stabilize it. Any cosmetic work where the bricks have cracked, you get somebody to come in and tuck point the bricks. And the thing that's nice about helical piers, it's economical and it's permanent. I mean, you don't have to worry about that area of your house. Now, somewhere else in the house might settle, but not where we put the helical piers in.
Well, cosmetic work, I mean, heck, we can help you with that. If you need some cosmetic help, we got Roby Handyman can take care of the brick portion, right?
There you go.
Hey, but before we were going into break, I'll tell you what, we're going to save the WebMD portion for next segment. Trent, you had another question for Pat?
Well, yeah. What percentage of your helical piers do you do new construction when you start to build a house? A big, we build these big, nice houses that we know are going to be heavy, and we know the soil isn't the best. So to prevent future problems, you coming in on the front end putting helical piers in.
Most helical piers, 80% of them are in retro, repairing houses. But new construction, they're great because, the footing's dug. We put a new construction pier in with a plate on it. Then you pour concrete, and you're not dependent on that soil right underneath the footing. You're dependent on soil that's 20, 30 feet in the ground, 15 feet, depending on what the capacity the engineer wanted.
Well, in a helical pier in a new construction, same as in an existing, that once you put that thing in, I mean, that house isn't going anywhere. Is that a correct statement?
That's correct.
Okay.
So a typical symptom is if somebody sees, and we see this all the time, the chimney's got a gap that opens up between the veneer of the home, the siding of the home, and the chimney brick, and you'll see it at the bottom. It'll be tight, and then it leans out away from the house. That means that the weight of that chimney is heavier really than the house, and it's kind of sinking. So you come in, and do you do a lot of chimneys?
We do a lot of chimneys. And unfortunately, it's ironic when you get there how small the footings are on chimneys, and I don't know what it is sometimes with builders. There's a lot of weight there.
Well, we're cheap. I mean, if we can save money, nah. I'm kidding. That's what people think. That's what Pat's saying.
Not all contractors, but I don't know. They use the same basic footing they've done on the rest of the house, and there's a heck of a load there, especially a 2-story chimney. We see a lot of them pulled away from the house, and they're easy to repair.
Well, it's like my dad said, we might not be cheap, but if you run with dogs, you're going to get fleas, right?
There you go.
Remember that, kids. Well, thanks for being here. When we come back, we're gonna keep talking about helical piers, or we're gonna switch to another foundation item.
I think we're gonna stick with foundations, but I'm gonna give a teaser. I thought we were gonna talk about that this segment, but when we come back, we are gonna talk about. And I said this last time. We're gonna talk about the WebMD for your house and foundation. You're listening to At Home with Roby. Check us out on Facebook. Andrew Roby, Roby Electric, and Roby Realty. We'll be right back.